same algorithm?
We're going live. No, I'm stopping. Bam. You got us live?
I guess we are. Whoops. Sorry.
It's all right. Fade Chris. Fade Charlie. And there we go. Cool. It's November 29th, which means tomorrow is payday for me. Woohoo.
Nice. Yeah.
But I'm Chris.
I'm Charlie.
And this is our second episode of
this 8-balling this week. God, I didn't know where you're going with that. 8-balling. All right, we'll cut it out in post.
In post, right?
No worries.
It was funny. There was a guy on Rogan, the CEO of Whole Foods, and they were arguing.
Yeah, I watched that.
They were arguing
Yeah,
a lot,
really,
man.
It was like bad broadcasting. It really bugged me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was an odd show. But he said 2, 3, 4 times. He's like, yeah, you can take care of this one in post. You can take care of it. And he's like, no, he wasn't aware that this shit doesn't come out.
Yeah, why? First of all, scratch all that stuff. You shouldn't even have to say that. If he's like, and we're live, that's the first thing Joe Rogan says pretty much every episode, and we're going. And then this guy, I'm laughing at the Joe Rogan side of it because he has this freaking CEO of Whole Foods on the show, and he's like reading him, he's like telling him what nutrition is, and like, no, you got it fucking backwards, man. He's like, this is what, that study's bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about.
Rogan's argument could have been stronger, but you know what was amazing is the guy said, well, I'd have to look it up. Fucking,
and then Rogan
like you said, he's CEO of Whole Foods. Like, you have to look it up. If you have a position, you need to know it.
Yeah. Rogan asked
I don't have the study in front of me.
I don't have the study with me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, what fucking study?
You can't do that.
Yeah, know your shit.
Right.
Don't cite a fairy tale.
You probably didn't expect to come on and talk about that. They did a whole chunk on like running a business. It was good. And then it like went totally off the rails, and it gave me like anxiety just from watching it, like social anxiety. I'm watching it, I'm like, oh fuck, I'd hate to be there. Yeah. I get that bad sometimes.
You know what was interesting? That's funny. My brother does that with television shows. He gets like empathetic with characters. Yeah.
Leave the room. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get it with TV, but because that's 2 real people, I was like, oh shit.
You know what was really interesting is, so the guy has this totally plant-based, totally whole food diet. He's got all the money in the world. He did not look healthy to me at all.
No, he looked grim. Yeah.
Yeah, he looked undernourished, underweight.
Frail.
His hair was thin. Yeah, he looked frail. It's a good word.
And it's funny as if you told me that guy
was just for reference, what Charlie and I are talking about is on the Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan had the CEO of and founder of Whole Foods on, and he does
John Mackey or Jack Mackey, John Mackey.
Yeah, and they just got into everything, and they got into an argument about whether or not switching to a plant-based diet, cutting out meat, makes you healthier. And Rogan's point was there's no baseline. The baseline was, do you eat meat 5 days a week or more? And it doesn't ask, are you otherwise healthy? Because his point, and this is a great point, if you eat shit, right? If you're eating at McDonald's 7 days a week and your answer is yes, and you go to a diet that's all plant-based whole foods, your health's totally going to improve. It's not like, do you eat totally organic and have, grain-fed beef 5 days a week?
They were arguing about a controlled part of the study.
And so Rogan
Saying,
was
hey,
right.
Yeah.
Because somebody who just says, yeah, check, beef 5 days a week, well, they're probably eating everything under the sun. Or a lot of them.
And and it just deteriorated from there. And the thing that was funny about it to me is I look at that whole, and I know how you feel about nutrition, but it's almost like in my mind, I almost feel like you could go with your personal preference. Like I don't believe in the science so much. Like I don't have faith in it that they've 100% figured it out. The simple fact that they couldn't pull up a study that definitively told you which one was the answer. I'm like, Rogan should just be like, oh, so you like Whole Foods and plant-based stuff? And the guy would be like, yeah. Be like, oh, cool. I like hockey. And then that would be the end of the conversation. Like, who fucking cares? I'm like, what are you getting into this whole thing about? This is the weirdest shit. It doesn't matter. It's like, you can eat meat, you can eat fucking the meat's food, it's fine. I don't know.
I like hockey.
I'm like reliving the moment, and now we're 5 minutes into the show talking about this, but it was fun.
Yeah, whatever. I'll finish the thing. I'm not nutrition crazy. I try not to eat shit with preservatives in it and highly processed food.
Yeah. I wouldn't have labeled you as nutrition crazy. I would have said health conscious.
Yeah.
Healthy. Yeah.
I don't go
Aware.
without ordering a pizza now and then and whatever. Having my not sugar sweetened but sugar filled drink. Anyway. All right, man, we went down a rabbit hole right out of the gate.
But it's related. It's good. It's related.
So parlay that
we do
into.
talk about Rogan a lot.
Yes, Charlie's got
no worries.
lead on our episode. So
I was already segueing, and you told me to start segueing, and you stepped on my segueing room.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Just busting your balls.
Blame it on COVID.
Anyway, we talk about Rogan a ton on the show. Like, maybe not all. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
He comes up
I
frequently.
kind of got on a Rogan. Yeah, it comes up frequently, as with everybody. He's the biggest guy in that podcast world. I just went on this bender, or this wormhole, I guess, where it unfortunately ended up being like Joe Rogan with Bernie Sanders, Joe Rogan with Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, all these lefty, and I'm not going to say socialists, but,
Tulsi's not
people
so
who live in a
bad,
certain way.
but Andrew Yang is Mr. UBI, right? And Bernie's Bernie.
About it for
Healthcare or Medicare for all. Forgiveness.
He literally was saying, he's like, yeah, we'll just pay people not to commit crimes. It's like, what?
What?
What
Really?
are you talking
I don't
about?
remember him saying that. Wow.
The argument could become that. It's a 3-hour show. They're all good, by the way. I didn't dislike any of them. It just really got my mind working. And I will say this. I kind of got turned on to Bernie a little bit more than I already was. I know he was kind of rebel, that's why I like him. But, I don't like his ideas, but I do like that he's against the machine.
I just came up with
and I'm
a
like,
joke.
I like this guy.
I just came up with a
ahead.
joke. Okay, so like a guy walks into a liquor store and says, give me all your money. And he's like, do you have a gun? And he's like, well, yeah, I just got this finger gun. And he's like, that's only worth $10. If you come back with a real gun, you get $20. So the guy comes back and he points a real gun at him. And he's like, hey, if you pop off a shot, it's worth 50. And he shoots it in the air. Give me all your money. And he's like, hey, now, you know what? If you dial this all back and don't commit the crime, you get a $50 gift card. And the guy's like, oh, cool. I won't rob you. Hand him a $50 gift card. Win-win. Nobody got hurt. Hey, but, and get to the point where I'll be like, hey, you know what? I'll tell you how to turn this into a $100 event if you spiff me half of it.
I thought you were going to go a totally different direction with that joke. I
Okay.
thought you were, because in that scenario, if you think about it, the guy comes in with a gun, finger gun at first, but he has a gun this time. He says, if you don't give me money, that guy, the store owner, is paying the robber to not commit a crime, which is murder him. He's saying, "Here's money. Don't kill me." Now the
Right.
government is doing that. It's like you're just bending over to get fucked by these guys, and you don't care. And he
No,
literally
it's kind of
summarizes his.
It's kind of the same
idea,
joke.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, mine was a little bit more concise. But
No, I'm thinking where he's like got a stack of, federally issued gift cards.
vouchers.
Yeah.
Maybe a government guy runs in and he says, "Okay, let me certify."
Hey, nice job.
Yeah.
Way to avert that.
All right. It's some sassy lady from the Secretary of State who doesn't want to be there. Anyway, I went down this whole rabbit hole of all these horrible. I shouldn't talk poorly about those ideas like that before we get into the whole thing. Ideas that I don't align with. Things like free healthcare, free college, universal basic income, shit like that. And it's interesting to kind of play around in these people's heads. And by the way, if you're a politician, you should freaking try to get your ass on Joe Rogan, because that's how people will meet the real you. Super uncommon, but a great way to actually kind of feel somebody out.
How many people in Washington do you think would want to go on a 3-hour show with a guy who's good at getting you to genuinely be yourself? That's potentially
Donald Trump wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Trump could handle it. He can babble for
because he's
30
his
hours.
personality. Yeah.
How many people
Hey, you wanna talk about
want
me?
that?
That's my favorite
Plus, if you're Republican, they're going to say, "You went on the Joe Rogan pot smoking hippie show? Really?"
That that doesn't happen anymore. Republicans aren't like that.
You think? I
You're
think
out of touch. Yeah.
I think
That Republican Party has died. Yeah, those people are called neocons now. They're like never Trumpers. It's like a tiny fraction of the current Republican Party.
all right. Anyway,
Just saying, I don't know. I'm just shooting from the hip here. No.
okay, so set aside my last comment, but how many politicians want to go someplace where they spend 3 hours explaining who they really are? 3 hours is a long
Just
time.
call it what it is. Do a
to
show
not-
with Joe
to
Rogan
not
where he
talk-
asks you whatever he wants to.
Right. 3 hours is a long time to not hang on bullet points.
Oh, fuck yeah. And by the way, all three of those people totally held their own. Respect. Because he was asking some... The funny thing about Rogan is, even though he's great at his job, he's also not that great at it. So, like, he asks these weird fucking questions, and it's like, what? What? Like, are you... What is that? So sometimes it's like it almost works in the opposite direction. They have to kind of explain this weird shit, but... that aside, they all did a good job, and they could, they had good personalities. They weren't like soulless people without personalities that
Yeah,
most people assume politicians are. Yeah,
Rogan's a pretty smart guy, but he has his limits in certain areas, for sure.
yeah. And I'm not bashing that dude. Whatever. I'm just
No,
pointing it out,
no, but I agree. There are certain things where he just it's a social show mostly.
no, that's great. I freaking love it. I wouldn't have watched all those episodes if I didn't like it, right? But anyway, that aside, now that we have the whole Jesus, how long did that take? We have the whole the whole
10 minutes.
backstory ready to go.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about those actual topics too, because it was pissing me off. Freaking Bernie talking about healthcare being quote unquote human right, and I've had this conversation 100 times with people that I never should have talked to in the first place, just because I get so riled up about it. But what the fuck is a human right? I've heard that so many times from these liberals who just like whip that out like it's they're like, oh yeah, well it's a human right, bitch. And I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Human right. Define that for me. And it's always some nebulous shit. It just means that it's going to be paid for by wizards or Congress,
Fairies.
which is just a bunch of wizards. Yeah.
Fairies.
Watch it there.
We need
Anyway,
to.
so I wanted to ask you, if you Chris, how would you define a human right? And it's a tough one.
It's pretty basic and pretty Spartan.
Yeah, careful.
I mean, to me, the biggest human right would be to be able to go about your business free from physical. I mean, this is very, very, very like, American kind of constitutional, but to go about your business free from physical harm or deprivation of established personal property. And kind of ends there.
Okay, so you're giving kind of like bullet points instead of like a definition.
Oh,
like I would say things
what's
that
a
you're
definition?
Yeah.
Well, those are right.
Yeah,
those are
apologize,
like
but-
rights I think that you would have.
Yeah, those are like bullet
Being-
point. Yeah, you're like
Yeah,
you're gonna list
being
them.
free from harm and being, being secure in your personal property. And that's like I said, that's kind of like the Constitution. I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's shit that
You get
The
to walk
concept
around
behind it is-
without being fucked with. That's
yeah, and I think it even goes beyond that. It's kind of like I like that God-given thing because it's like, hey, you were put on this earth. None of us other people did anything that changed what your rights are. Because you're alive, you're allowed to do these things, and no one is allowed to stop you from doing those things. Whoops, shit. But that's more of a, it's we're kind of getting in the weeds there with the definition. But and frickin' Lania should have had her on for this because she has this great way of explaining it. Point being, human rights. I don't have a human right to own a car, right? It's not a human right. It's a human privilege, right? Like that's totally a privilege. I don't necessarily have a right to go on a date with that hot chick or whatever the case is, but those are all things that I can do if given the right circumstances. The idea that healthcare, and I've even heard it put once, the right to be healthy, which I was like, how the fuck do you guarantee that you're going to be healthy? Like, even for you, like they're like, oh, let's go back in a time machine and make sure you didn't break your neck in that, water skiing accident. It's to me, it's preposterous, and it's just some political grandstanding that they use to get their their base riled up. It's like, yeah, it is a human right, and I hate that term so much. Drives me up the wall.
yeah, but then to me. And you know that I'm more liberal than you in certain areas, then certain things get relative. And to me, like the one thing, when you're in a country of wealth like the United States, if you're diagnosed with a treatable disease that's not rare, like a heart condition with, simple 2, 3, 4 hour procedure, keeps you from dying. That to me is where I don't mind paying into a fund that will keep my fellow countrymen alive, where it's not, totally complicated. If you have the, 1 in 100 million people get the disease, and it's going to cost $10 million a day to keep you alive, that's a different deal, right? So, and there's a huge gray area between the two of those, and where you draw the line between what you do and don't get gets dicey when you start getting into practical areas. But again, it was like when we had your friend Noah on. I think he said you shouldn't have to choose between, like, food and life, or food and healthcare, or something like that, or be straddled, or to stay alive, be straddled with debt for the rest of your life. That's more along the lines of how he put it, and that I fundamentally agree with that.
So I almost started to go again, because that's the difference, is life and food, or food and life versus, or food and healthcare versus food and straddle debt, because that's the reality of the situation. You're not getting the healthcare. I believe the law requires them to actually treat you. It just, who's paying for it? You are. At the end of the day, it just becomes debt, and it could ruin you, but at least you're alive. And I could be mistaken about that, but I'm pretty sure, depending on what your illness is or ailment, like if you show up in an emergency room, they can't turn you away.
Yeah, my understanding is that if you go to the emergency room, you can't be turned away. And that's how a lot of low-income people get their health care, is whatever they need treatment for, they just go to the emergency room, which is a terribly inefficient and terribly expensive way to treat pretty much anything, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and if you just wait until you are emergent in whatever situation, it's not the best way to get treated, and it's really expensive. And the hospitals, ultimately the consumers who pay, whether they're paying out of their pocket or paying through private or through work insurance, which is private, that's why private healthcare is so expensive, or partly why, because it's subsidizing all this inefficiency.
Itself, right? Yeah, its own failures. Which, by the way, itself, that whole insurance, I love that shit. And you're an econ major, so maybe you kind of share that nerdy little thing with me. But I love the mechanics of how that works. We don't have to go into that. That'll get pretty boring. But what the hell was I gonna say? Anyway, back to my point. The law already guarantees you health care. As pretty much most people see it, you're gonna get treated, and maybe not if you have a freaking, you can't be like, hey, I have a headache. I want to see if I have like a tumor or whatever.
Brain
maybe not
tumor.
Then, but
right.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, fuck off, homeless man.
I want a CAT scan.
But
give me a CAT scan.
Yeah, but if your arm is broken and the bone is poking out, they're gonna help you. I don't think they're legally allowed to turn you away, but.
Well, here's something to think
like
about.
That,
So the number one killer of people, or the number one cause of morbidity in the United States, is heart disease. And that's spoons.
I just mean because you're eating all that shit and it makes you fat in your heart.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
Sweetened with
Ginger, real sugar.
Canadian clover honey. One of the lowest glycemic index sweeteners you could use. Anyway, health conscious choice, right? Cost almost $2 for that bottle. The point being,
damn.
So the highest cause of human morbidity in the United States is heart disease, which is hypertension, heart attacks, a lot of things that are highly correlated to obesity, lack of exercise, poor diet, and on and on. So while correlation is not causation, so here's another thing. The most obese segment of our population is the lowest 20% of wage earners in the United States. So there are a lot of, it highly suggests that consistent poor decision making with regard to what you eat, whether or not you exercise, and on, has to do with largely people who seem to make bad decisions about pretty much everything.
Finance, diet.
And these people coincidentally would fall into, just because of correlation, not having money, likely not to have health insurance. So if you don't exercise, you eat garbage, you don't take care of yourself, and you are also the group that suffers from the thing that kills most people. Do the math. That's what frustrates me. Despite being a little more civic minded in terms of, distributing healthcare, maybe a little more, in a little more egalitarian way.
Instead of hierarchical.
Yeah.
You can't shame
That
fat
still
people anymore, Chris.
frustrates
It's not
the shit out of me. In the last, probably 20 days, I think I've gone twice without working out.
oh my God.
For the last 2 weeks,
your
I've
body?
wanted to order a pizza, and I can't bring myself to do it. I'm like, I can't put that thing in front of me and feel good about myself. I mean, that's how disciplined I've gotten. And maybe it's a little extreme, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's I don't know if I'd say extreme. That's who you are as a person. That would be harsh. I think that's being harsh on yourself. You're allowed to have those feelings, Chris. It's okay. I give you permission. But yeah, people are different, whatever. And you say, hey, why am I footing the bill for this guy who eats pizza out of the last, instead of missing 2 days of working out, he missed 2 days of pizza. That was what he
Right.
missed. He had 12 pies. Yeah. And that's that guy's choice. But the nice thing about the way that things would be ideally, I almost said the way that they are now, which they aren't, is that guy's decisions don't affect me because I'm not paying for his stomach to get stapled shut, whatever the hell happened, whatever they do.
Maybe you do.
Maybe he gets, well, ideally, I said, hopefully in the end, unless he's my buddy.
No,
or
my point is
boyfriend
maybe
or
it's
whatever.
cheaper for you and for me if the guy does get his stomach stapled,
He's like, oh, shit, yeah.
right? Because
Yeah,
what's it cost to
I didn't
staple
even
a stomach?
think about that.
Oh yeah. Well, here I'll give you.
Yeah.
This is kind of along the same lines, and I'm not condoning or anything before I make this point. But yeah, so say stomach stapling procedure costs $5,000. What's your average, open heart surgery? Probably $50,000. Maybe we staple those stomachs. So here's something I find ironic. Republicans are totally pro-life. The cost of an abortion versus the cost of subsidizing a baby to an impoverished single mother are hugely disparate.
Yeah.
What's an abortion at a Planned Parenthood clinic? $1,000? $1,500?
I would guess like 300. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe 500. I have no idea.
Had to go there.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I'm spitballing it, but it's a lot less than paying an impoverished mother, ADC and food stamps and subsidized housing and whatever else you get.
Or going to jail for missing one alimony payment, child support
I just-
payment. Sorry.
Yeah, I just find some irony there, and
Yeah.
and that's that's Machiavellian right there. So
And
I'm not condoning that, but I just see, again, irony.
You say, hey, now that Chris and Charlie have a financial interest in your
Staple,
healthcare, they also get a say in your preventative care as well.
staple that
It
stomach.
sucks. Yeah.
Abort that baby.
That's
Right?
something that they do, right? Yeah, that was on
Just
South
in the interest of dollars and cents. Totally
what the
joking,
hell's-
people. Totally
What's the
joking.
lady's name who started it? Sorry. That was really funny. Forget it. I'll
Started
be thinking
what?
about it for 5 minutes. Started Planned Parenthood. Doesn't matter. We won't go down that hole. That's a whole other thing. She's like all these weird, weird stories about her personal belief system. But anyway, you're exactly right. That's one of the huge things, and I've totally forgotten about that point. My dad used to talk about that too, but it's like, yeah, what the fuck? Because it's not like you said, egalitarian. It's a hierarchy, but almost in reverse, where it's like the guy who is in the lower. And this is why it doesn't pop into my mind automatically, because I'm not mean. I'm a nice guy. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Bad
But-
health. People who practice
In
bad
line with-
health consume way more health care, for sure.
And they're the person who this government program exists for because they can't afford health care in the first place, which is why they eat McDonald's.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a rabbit hole too, but I mean, there's such a, to me, huge correlation between general bad decision making and all these outcomes in life, right? Why don't you have a good job? Why don't you have health care? Well, maybe you don't, because you don't have a good job. Why don't you have a good job? Because you never prepared to be skilled at anything. Why didn't you prepare to be skilled at anything? Because you're generally lazy. Why are you generally, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's just this crescendo of choices to not do anything for yourself.
And if you're new to politics, what Chris just discussed is the basic difference between Democrats and Republicans. I'll say progressives and progressives and conservatives.
You
Is
think?
that there's egalitarian society and then there's hierarchical society. Not the way that we discussed with the fat guy getting his stomach stapled, but in terms of people can, and you're gonna. I don't mean for race or gender or religion or anything, but regardless of any individual factor, some people can be better than other people. And if you believe that, then you're going to fall to the conservative side of things. And it's not to say that the guy who is lazy and then, crescendos into this horrible thing is a bad person, but the guy who's the CEO of Whole Foods is a better guy than I am. He's more impressive of a person. And he also contributes more to society at large. Unless he has some horrible past.
You got a lot of time, man. He's
Sounds
67 years old. And he started it in the 70s. So what do we got?
Yeah, hippie. There you go.
Oh, that's 60 years. You better get... Yeah, he's ahead of you. Wow,
thanks.
Well,
Anyway, that was a
I'm just doing
tangent,
Yeah. So this gets into... Charlie and I were speaking very briefly before the show. And I continue to get... And AOC is my icon for... I think not. Is my icon for just frustration with... and probably 6 months ago, I said, I'm not going to use the term lefty because I said I at least want to give people their due and use the word leftist. But fuck that. I'm tired. I've had enough. She's just a lefty ignoramus. And so when I heard Nancy Pelosi, get in the argument with Wolf Blitzer of all people and say, I feed them, like, oh my God. If somebody conservative said that, you'd be like, who's them? Who's them? Right? So I feed them. So what do you do? And AOC, when she originally came out with the Green New Deal, said, if you can't work, you don't work. If you can't this, you don't this. And then at the end she said, and if you don't want to work, you don't have to work. And she quickly dialed that back because everybody lost their mind. And in the last 3 months or so, she said something really, really close to that once again and kind of inadvertently retracted it. So here's the thing. Most people, and some don't even realize it, want to do something.
Yeah.
And, maybe my job, I want to do something with my days. I want to, at the end of the day, have accomplished something. What I currently do for a living, it's far from my first choice, but at the end of the day, I don't feel worthless, right? I feel like, wow, that's all done. And it gives you a sense of purpose. So backing up, if AOC, the whole UBI, if you don't want to work, you don't have to work, whatever you want to call it, you know what that does is that destroys human potential.
It totally disincentivizes. It's slavery without the hard labor. Like in a sense, you're just here's your money. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really is, because you don't
you-
have an incentive to produce anything. Whatever. Go ahead.
You're robbing people of their spirit without even knowing it. You know, you're taking somebody who's feeling, I don't know, feeling as though they need the help. And instead of giving them a fishing pole, you just give them a fish. And when the fish is gone, you just give them another fish and give them another fish. And
Now, the
essentially,
problem-
you know,
Yeah.
and again, to me, it just destroys human potential and robs people of the human spirit and, you know, what we want to do. You know, and if you don't want to work, tough. And there are people who don't want to work. And sorry, you got to at least pull on the rope.
And to me, this is something interesting. The thing that's sad is I don't know if that person is making a conscious decision, like you said, to choose to not work, or if they're like, I don't know how to, you know, we can use this to segue into student loans, but my student loan is $200 a month, and I also have a car payment and my mortgage, and it's like, okay, budgeting is one thing, but if you don't know how to get the number up an extra $1,000 a month, it's kind of a pretty simple equation where it's like you just put in more effort, or you figure it's not impossible. The answer isn't directly, I asked the government to give me $12,000 a year. I don't know if that's a conscious decision or it's just like, yeah, that sounds nice, because that way I don't have to figure it out now.
Yeah,
and
I don't
some
know.
other guy can fucking pay for it.
I don't know.
And that's the real dilemma to me, is that whole idea. And frickin' that's what bugged me about Andrew Yang as he was talking about this very thing. He's like, yeah, it would be nice to have an extra $12,000 a year. And you're like, what? That's your reason to do this? It would be nice.
Here's the thing.
It would be nice. Are you fucking kidding me? It would be great, I'm sure.
I don't know
Jeez.
if you remember, but if you did that, people, it wouldn't be long before whatever the number might be. And I did this on another show probably a year ago. If you did that,
Inflation.
people, it would not be long before people would say, this is bullshit. I can't live off $12,000 a year. I need more money.
Oh, I thought you
Look at how I live.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And look
I
at how
don't even
Jeff
have a fry.
Bezos lives. Yeah. And then it's going to be
Fucking
15
dick.
and then it's going to be 20 and then what the fuck? It'll be out of hand.
Same argument with minimum wage, by the way, right here. Like, you're trying to just make it. When does it stop?
Did
Just
I
get rid of a minimum wage.
did
Solve
I
a lot of problems.
tell you, was this one of my morning imaginary arguments? Well, not imaginary arguments with myself, or did I tell you the McDonald's thing? The
It's
working
very
at
real.
McDonald's
No, I
and
don't remember it.
okay. So here's kind of a scenario I played out in my head. Somebody's working at McDonald's. There's a whole restaurant working at McDonald's. And employee A goes to the manager and says, hey, employee B, they must make a lot more money than me because employee B drives in a car and seems to have more things, and I've seen where he or she lives, and it's much better than I can afford, and all that. And the manager says, well, you know, this is none of your business, but employee B works 60 hours a week, and you work 20 hours a week. So he makes, or she makes, 3 times what you make. And employee A says,
Actually,
well,
more than that.
yeah, well, I don't care. You know, I work as much time as I can afford. I have this obligation and that obligation, and I need my free time, and you know, I sleep a lot, and I noticed, you know, employee B has a lot more energy, and yeah, well, employee B runs 5 miles a day. Well, I can't do that. I don't have the energy to run 5 miles a day. So he's got more energy than me. Of course he's going to be able to work 60 weeks. You know, and on and on and
I'm
on.
triggered.
And right, so I can only work 20 hours a week. Guess what? Sorry.
if somebody said that to me, by the way, you fucking hit the nail on the head. And if you missed that and you're watching, go rewind 15 seconds and listen to what he's saying. Because that person is making a conscious decision to earn less. And they're saying, why am I earning less? I made this choice to earn less. That's exactly what it is. And if you're that kind of person, if that's the thought process, this is my question about the internal dilemma earlier. If that's what's going on in your head, I have absolutely zero sympathy for you. You are making that choice willingly, and you don't deserve a penny more than you get or that you work for. Now, that being said, I had a good spot to go with this. Where was I going to go? Oh, God damn it.
Here, I got something that I've said before.
I got cut off.
Maybe you'll get it back. Sorry.
No, it's
so
me.
I've thought of 3 things you might break down into utility that might be extracted from people. And I've brought this up before in terms of what I'd like to get from people that I don't have, right? So I will totally concede that a lot of my station in life is good fortune, right? Good parents, good values, told, if not more or less forced, to work hard and do the right thing. And it paid off.
The kids call it voluntold.
Voluntold. In terms of, some circumstances in my life, I don't have the ability, like today, paid a guy to come over and manage the leaves in my yard. So the 3 things are ability to earn money or have money, possess money, however you want to define it, free time, and physical labor.
Oh, I fucking remembered my thing. Sorry.
Okay.
It's summing up what you're saying right now. It's economics at its core. It's just opportunity cost. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
So
right?
hey, let me. So my point is, in terms of those 3 utilities, I'm best poised in the money category. Now, people resent, even at certain levels, maybe my level, resent having any kind of money where you can afford what might be considered excess. I don't know. Or you have the ability to save to any significant level, right? When I'm just working check to check and I could barely afford food. So
ability to be responsible.
So guess what? You know what you have that I don't? A lot more time, because my life situation is extremely time consuming, and the ability to do manual labor that I can't do. And guess what? I don't resent anybody for having those 2 things. And I don't expect that under penalty of law that they should have to give me those things. So why under penalty of law, beyond some reasonable point that's probably already been exceeded, should I have to give them my money? If we're going to do this deal, then I want the cops to go to your fucking house and drag you to my house and give me your time and your labor, because that's what I don't have that you do. So if we're going to extract things, let's make this a very nice round robin exchange. And if we're going to provide universal basic income, then you're going to fucking work for it, doing something.
I fucking love that. And this, folks at home, this idea is, you can applause break there, but this idea that Chris is spitting out right now is months in the making, by the way. He originally told this to me off camera a long time ago. We would call that universal basic value. So it's just, the nice thing about money is that it's essentially just, when it comes down to it, it's just time. You just someone's time. So you're getting value out of their time, and they're getting value out of your time. That is a revolutionary concept when I'm going to use the same word again, conceptualizing what taxes are. And it's like, oh, shit. You're like, yeah, the government might as well have just fucking stolen you for, like Chris said, the cops came over and made you rake leaves for 6 hours when you could have made $100 or whatever and just given that to him. You can play with the numbers, but that's essentially what it is. And he's totally right. It's not preposterous. That's what it is. That's essentially what it is when you break it down.
Right.
And I do like that idea.
Yeah, you got people who are retired,
Retarded?
and they're now, like physically frail and spending their money perhaps in a retirement community. And they're paying the retirement home to keep the grounds up, cut the grass, trim the flowers, keep the place nice, clean it. So, and they're paying taxes presumably on money they may have saved if they've done all right for themselves. So why shouldn't people who have the time and or physical capacity that the elderly don't have be forced to go help them? Right? If there are these resources and we're going to say we're going to involuntarily extract them
via hard labor.
Let's list them all out on a piece of paper and be fair about it and distribute it equitably. You want my money?
The thing that I like about that,
I get value from you. I get your time.
the thing that I love
you
about
cook-
this hypothetical world.
How about you cook my dinner and you do my dishes and I get that hour and I get to play the hour of video games that you would have otherwise played during that hour? How about that? How about that exchange? And if you don't do that, you go to fucking jail.
And you know what's the funny is that's like I want to like make a book now where that's like a real thing. This fantasy world is becoming my new favorite thing. I'm picturing like imagine you had like a tax lien thrown in your house and you just slowly pay it off by going and doing chores at some old lady's house. It's like you can either pay cash or you're going to do 600 hours at the Finnegans. Not the Finnegans.
Well, one of the things that gets thrown at you if you're convicted of a crime, like a low-level crime, is usually like a fine and community service.
Well, and it's a time tax, whatever you want to call it, but tax is tax.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you break it down, at the very end of the day, money is just what your time is worth. It's identical to taxation.
Based on productivity, skill set. I guess those
that
two
would be
things.
so funny. The only flaw with that plan, I'm using only sarcastically here, folks, is that you'd have to come up with some sort of system where you rank people by their productivity, and that wouldn't go well. It's almost like China and their social.
I don't even care.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's going to come stand
Just
in my
arbitrary.
yard and I'm going to watch them like stand there with a rake and get nothing done, I don't care. Because you know what? The 5 hours, the 6, 8 hours, they're going to stand in my lawn and you're going to take your phone away, right? You don't get to stand there and play and talk and whatever. Even if you get nothing done, you know what that person's going to do? They're going to say, fuck this, I'm going to get a job.
That is fucking hilarious. And in this hypothetical, the person is jobless. Now,
Right.
what we're really talking about is someone who's just scraping by. So they do have a job. They just are like, I'd rather play video games than work the extra 20 hours a week.
They might not have a job.
That's how
I
it
mean,
works
I don't know. I don't totally know what all the entitlement programs are, but I mean, and I don't know if this is just, voodoo myth. But supposedly you can get by with subsidized housing, bridge card, ADC or whatever it's called. You get like a $3,000 tax credit if you have a kid. You can survive at a subsistence level doing nothing, I think.
I don't know. I've never tried it. Maybe that's what I'll do for the next episode. I'll do all of it in a week.
Like those people who did those phony papers. Did you see that?
No, but go ahead and tell your thing, and I'll tell you my thing.
There were these people, and I don't know if they have PhDs or not, but they represented themselves as PhDs, and they wrote these like just absurd papers on one of them was like they went and they observed like men walking male dogs humping other dogs in the park, and wrote a paper on like toxic masculinity and animal culture in public parks, and submitted these papers, and they went through peer reviews.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do remember this. Yeah.
And they got published. So, and now I forget why I'm even analogizing something to this.
It's because we want this hypothetical idea here to become reality after it's been peer reviewed, just like those newspapers. I don't know. I was trying to help you out there.
I forget. I was trying to make a point. I lost the point. But that in and of itself was hilarious.
It's so goddamn funny. And then the idea that it's so like not out there that maybe they were like, yeah, this is just crazy enough for right now for us. We'll publish that. like who the trying to picture Walter Cronkite being like, what the fuck is this?
Well, I mean, it was just so, apropos, I want to say, like offense du jour, male men walking male dogs, humping other dogs, and did they try to interfere or, scold the dog? And they did they did a handful of papers, and the majority of them got rejected, but a few of them got through and got published.
Be like, oh shit, this one actually fits our narrative for the week on dog park rape. I don't know what you call it. Sorry, I hate that because I forgot earlier. We both had a forget today.
Yeah. That's all right. It's been a lazy week.
That's all right. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Wow, that was a long rant on taxes. I don't know if we're ready to move on, but
Sure.
the other thing I wanted to get to actually was planning on spending the bulk of this episode, of which we have like a few minutes left, was if you're going to relate the healthcare thing as a human right, which apparently to these politicians, it just means that we're going to pay for it as a government, which is the taxpayers are going to pay for it. So everyone's going to pay for everyone's shit. Otherwise, communism. College, if you're literally, if you're Bernie Sanders going out there saying the words free college, or how many fucking Democrats you heard that term, literally the term free college, you could just say college is a human right, and it's, what is it, associative transitive property. Now the government's going to pay for it. The idea that those two things are arbitrarily aligned, and unfortunately so in this case. It's not like that was planned, whatever. But those two things are just really on my fucking mind right now, because it's like, hey, you want to have somebody cover the healthcare bill, and it's like, oh, while we're at it, let's wipe out student loans. Because didn't we talk about this like 2 weeks ago? Because it's not like you were 18 and a legal adult when you signed this document,
right?
And didn't ask questions,
right?
That to me is unforgivable.
I lost my train of thought. What did you just say? It's Sunday, huh?
I said I like you more than a friend.
Easy, steady, big fella.
Student loan debt. If they're gonna forgive it, to me that's reprehensible.
Yeah, well, you triggered a thought. I wouldn't be opposed to some, depending upon your station in life, some sort of more availability. Not college, not a 4-year degree, because that's a certain thing with a certain trajectory, right? And part of my concern is, and we had this conversation, like I think in my garage or something, about how it, or maybe I was explaining it to somebody else. Part of the problem with that is it'll just devalue a 4-year degree. Because the minute something is free and paid for by government, what's going to happen? If everybody gets a 4-year degree, then like the University of, let's pick a random city, let's say Phoenix. University of Phoenix pops up out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, instead of issuing 10,000 degrees a year, they're issuing 2 million. What have you just done to the value of a college degree? You've just taken it
And
down
you do
to
this shit online anyway now. So-
yeah, and you've just taken it down to nothing. It's a degree you get in your underwear and who knows what. So do you have a college degree? The value of the answer of that being yes just gets totally diminished and diluted.
Diminishing marginal return. Yeah, and we did talk
For
about this
sure.
last episode, but it's worth it to bring that point home. That's exactly what happens. Same shit with UBI, by the way. If everybody in America has an extra 12 grand a year, the prices of stuff, now the guy who's selling shit knows that everyone that he's trying to sell stuff to has an extra 12K. There's no negotiating there. That's just how fucking inflation works. It's not rocket science.
So
But
anyway,
same principle with this fucking, go ahead. Yeah,
backing
college
up,
degrees.
what I might be able to be on board with would be some sort of vocational training where you actually have a skill. And even if it's understanding, I think half the problem with somebody who goes to work at a McDonald's is nobody's ever told them, like, pick up a mop and mop. And you mop until the floor is clean. And then you wring out the mop and you empty the bucket and you put it where it was. And who's ever in charge of giving you tasks, you go to them and you say, okay, the floor's mopped and you did a good job. What do I do now? I think there's a lot of people who just, I think it's almost hard to grasp, but don't get that. Don't understand, like, mop the floor in this room. So that means from those two corners to those two corners, you take this mop, you stick it in the thing, you wring it out, and you mop the little area till it's clean, and then you stick it in the water, and you wring it out, and you mop, and you do it until you fit every square inch, and do it nice methodically, and rows back and forth, and then you're done. And then you get ready
And
for the
after
next
a week
task.
of doing that, I won't have to tell you how to do that anymore.
Right. But you shouldn't, at the age of 18, I knew how to do lots of stuff. I certainly knew how to do probably 99 out of 100 things that you would do if you went to a McDonald's. I could have been head fry chef. You take this basket, you throw these frozen fries in it, you stick them in, you hit that button. When you hear the dinger ding, you pull them out, you salt them, then you put them over there, and that guy puts them in bags. Oh, check, got it. And you do it. And I think half the time, in today's world, if you were like, got it, and you did it right, the manager would be like, oh my God, this person's a miracle.
But you totally fucked him up. Why did you include that part of that other guy's job in his job description? You said that guy puts it in.
Well, then
bags.
you
He's
move
like,
him over
"Whoa,
here
What the fuck does
and
that mean?"
Joe or
He blew up his
Jane,
head. I'm just kidding.
puts them in, frying containers.
I was
And
making a stupid joke. It didn't really go well. But
Oh.
yeah, it's what's funny is that was eerily similar to how my first day on the job was when I worked at a pizzeria. It was like, broom, just clean the floor. Start there. And then when you're done with that, let me know. All right, wipe the baseboards down. He wasn't telling me how to fucking wipe the baseboards down, but it was just like, bam, bam, bam. And now I can run the fucking pizza store by myself if I wanted to, given enough
Right.
time. And I've increased my value to that guy who was risking his fucking ass by letting me even touch a mop in his store. And that's what that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And that might be a stretch, but not always. He was putting his life on the line, his business, his
no, who
livelihood.
knows what you might, water, rinse, slippery when wet. Somebody
He
falls
just
and knocks
comes
their
back 10
head.
minutes
and-
later, everyone else is dead.
Right. 10 people are on the floor
know.
with head injuries.
Mop the
But
floor,
anyway,
mop
so
their-
so I
Sorry.
wouldn't be opposed to getting somebody ready to go out into the workforce to have very basic skills to anywhere from, very simple manual labor to, skilled, I don't know, fixing a car, working on a machine in a factory, whatever. I think there's vocational training that could take anywhere from 6 to say 24 months that under the right conditions, could be free or subsidized, I wouldn't have a huge problem with that. But just
And
this,
it's go ahead.
I was just going to say, college degree for everybody. What the fuck does that mean? Right? So everybody's going to get a liberal arts degree, and you're going to have, instead of 100,000 people with liberal arts degrees who either have to go on to, they're either going to be school teachers or go on to grad school or do something completely out of, if you get a degree in English, what do? You teach, or you get
My
another
mom has a
degree,
degree in English.
or you go to work for something your degree didn't train you for, but college is not necessarily vocational training, but your resume, what you did over the summers and when you were younger, speaks to, an overall ability to get shit done. But anyway,
Which, by the way, if there's any non-college grads, that is what matters, is the experience.
yeah, ability to get shit done. So anyway, this whole college for everybody, again, that doesn't necessarily give you value. Yeah, I got an online degree in basket weaving. Now pay me $100,000 a year.
You're like, wait, what?
You're not going to
That's
be
how
any
it works.
right. Whether or not you're any more valuable after however long it took you to get that degree is anybody's call.
And you know what's beautiful? I apologize for cutting you off like 3 times during that. I'm just so excited about this because it's all coming together, full circle here. You know what's beautiful about that idea is that the staff, the infrastructure, literally the day-to-day routines for developing a system that could do that for our nation's youths literally already exists. And you know what's funny is our nation's public schools are struggling at making sure that kids live up to these standards at which they need in order to get a college degree, because everybody needs a degree. What the fuck? If you just change some of the curriculum around, you literally use the exact same shit. Not everyone needs to be in STEM. Those people do need a little bit of extra. And I'm not in STEM. I'm a fucking, I talk to people for a living. That's what my skill is. But you already have the fucking, the whole thing already exists. All you got to do is change what you teach them. And I think that would go so far if you just taught people how to be people instead of like everyone's going to be a fucking rocket scientist or a doctor or an engineer. It's unrealistic.
I had friends.
It's a fantasy.
I had friends, they're
A little riled up.
my junior and senior year, who went to, they called it VOC, and it was vocational training. They went to a different school system that had these programs, and like they had them like machine repair, machine operator, where they had like a serious
Welding
metals.
shit,
Yeah, stuff like that. So think if there were, whether it were post-high school or the last 6 months of high school, you basically completed your regular high school requirements in the last, semester. You got a vocational certificate, and let's just call it something like general machinery maintenance, where we're talking like very rudimentary stuff, where you might go to work, they might give you like a minivan, and you might go to work for McDonald's, and you go from store to store to store, and like when the French fry fryer goes out of whack, you go there and you troubleshoot it, and you fix it. Who knows? There are things that people could be trained for that would have value that certainly don't require a 4-year degree, and could arguably.
And then you're going to have the people who go. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and arguably would have more immediate value, and you just be able to go deploy people and do something that's productive.
And I was going to say even fulfilling, like not in a. I mean, like in a happiness sense. It's not like going to be like, oh, I fucking hate fixing fryers. Be creative. It's the beautiful thing about it is that you're kind of breaking the mold here, and you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. I think if you're speaking of welding, if you're an underwater welder, which is the same shit, you do go to vocational school, and all you do is just become a diver in the process. You don't need a degree for that, but you make 6 figures because it's kind of a dangerous job. So you go work for some oil company who needs you to fix a leak in one of their rigs, and that's kind of a fucking cool job when you make 120K. That's not bad. I actually know a guy who did that. But shit like that, it's just be creative. And you're probably making what, somewhere on average between 50 to 70K your first few years out of college with a not special degree. Yeah.
Underwater welder. I
That's a
saw
real
a
thing, yeah.
thing on that like 20 years ago. I bet they're making more than 50 grand a year. It's highly dangerous. It's highly
it's
dangerous.
over 6 figures, yeah.
Yeah.
Highly.
But no, see, but where you said it may not be that rewarding to fix a fryer, what if you grew up and nobody ever really gave you a hug and told you good job, which exists, unfortunately. And your first day, you go into McDonald's, and just to stay on the fryer, you fix the fryer. And you fix it, and you get it done in like an hour, in the middle of the afternoon. And the manager comes up, and he goes, "Thank you so much. We were dying. We make half our money on French fries. We make a good portion of our money on French fries, and you just saved the store. Thank you so much." All of a sudden, this young guy or gal's all fucking pumped up. Like, wow, man, nobody's ever...
Because you're a hero.
Yeah. No, I've never been a hero in my life. That was awesome.
And all I did was watch a YouTube video.
Yeah, and people, that's reward, right?
Right.
You just milked a little potential out of that person.
Yeah, and I'm taking that back, that whole fix the fryer thing. I'm not the guy who's here to tell you what you should and shouldn't be proud of or whatever, enjoy. That's what I said about breaking the mold, is that you get to define all that shit for yourself. And one thing I do not want to be is the guy that says, you like fixing fryers, you fucking nerd. No, those people are horrible. And I didn't mean that like that. It just wouldn't be something for me. But find whatever the fuck you want to do. There's so much shit. And even if it's that thing where the guy says high five, that makes me happy. I like that. It's not crazy. That's like Pavlov's dogs type stuff. Psych 101.
Yeah, for sure.
Could have been anything. I could have mopped the floor. Whatever. I just didn't want people to think that I was being like a classist asshole, like fixing fryers.
No. I didn't think
You're
it
totally
sounded
right.
like that. But even though mop the room. If it's your first day and you literally mop corner to corner, and it's even and it's uniform, and
You're like, this shit
the
looks
bucket's in the closet and the mop's hung up all dry, somebody's gonna be impressed with that, and they're gonna say, "Wow, nice job." And all of a sudden, you're thinking like, this person, is gonna work their way up beyond mopping floors. That's for sure.
You were charged with a task and completed it beyond expectations, which is, and you should be proud of that. What the hell? That's all I'm talking. You're right.
For sure.
Pride. And I texted you that earlier. We wanted to talk about pride and shame, but maybe next time.
Yeah. In Good Will Hunting.
Goddamn spotless floor.
He's like, and somebody, I forget, somebody did that. They should be proud. It's a hard day's work.
Wait, what was this? What are they talking
In
about?
Good Will Hunting, somebody was saying like, you're a genius. Whatever you're doing, that's a waste of your time, or that's a waste of their time. And he was like, why? That's you did X. You should feel proud. Anyway, accomplishing anything.
Because he was a janitor, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but
You're pushing brooms, or I forget what the exact story was, but the point
Demolition Crew. Yeah.
A task well done is a task well done.
It's a reward in and of itself. Yeah.
Yep.
If you have a certain mindset, and whatever, we'll go into that next time. I do want to talk about that, but.
Well, so the old adage is, any job worth doing is worth doing well. Any job.
Yeah. It's just a dying mindset in America, I think.
It is. It really is. It's sad.
How do I do this fastest and easiest? That's like the new mindset. Any job worth doing is easier when done quickly and easily. I don't fucking know what you'd say. But
so you can literally get back to your phone or your game.
Yeah, it's so fucking... Yeah. I feel like I was cheated out of a real life because these things exist. It's like nothing is real. Even right now, you and I are talking on a fucking computer, and it's so funny. That's a whole other rabbit hole too, but yeah.
Yeah, but we're
Be a
not
real,
texting
genuine
it. We're
person
not
and don't
looking at.
put
We're
your
not
picture.
doing 10 things at a time.
I'm
You
not
know.
in a room with 5 other people ignoring them in my virtual world.
Right. This is a cerebral exchange.
Get ready for the other exchange.
Or so we say.
later.
Steady, big fella. It's twice I've had to say that tonight.
Sorry. It was just these softballs are really easy.
Yeah.
I think that probably just about does us. That's an hour, a little over an hour.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in a good mood. We're both smiling and laughing. I think it's an 8
Yeah.
ball. Oh, we need a question.
Oh, I asked it last time, so you. Can
Okay,
take this.
I got an easy one. Will we ever get back to embracing the concept of an honest day's work for an honest day's pay?
As Americans, society, where are you going with
Just
this?
in general.
Humans.
Yeah, in America, in the world.
Let's try. It's just better not tell you now. That was kind of a letdown. I think it's because you're.
That
vague
says
with
it
your
all right there.
population. That's
No,
why I
it's
tried to get you to clarify.
it's because the 8 ball's like, I'm not touching that one.
8 ball's like, I'm on my fucking phone right now. I thought you meant the 8 ball's. with
8
you
ball's
too,
on the
but yeah,
phone. 8 ball's on the phone.
just texting. Better not tell you now. Huh? Yeah. Otherwise, you just off yourself. Yeah. No, I have faith. That's all. You should also end it on that. Optimistic. It's not all over. Don't be black-pilled.
It's not all over.
It's all right. Everything will work out.
We'll get through it. But we're Americans. We got to look down. We got to find our bootstraps. We got to grab them. We got to get serious.
What are boots?
It's time to change this place. If you don't have boots, we'll hook you up. All right, man. Cue music. Say goodbye to Charlie.
Bye, guys and gals.
Say goodbye to Chris. And that is an 8 ball. Later, people.